Hello, everyone. Today I will review two super hit movies. It was the talk of the century. Do you know what magic is? It is to take away the attention of viewers. The more you pay attention, the easier it is to be fooled. This guy is Danny, a street magician. He tells people to memorize a card they like. Then Danny dealt it out, but there was no such card in the deck. When the crowd was in an uproar, he just said, "The closer you look, the less you'll see," and threw the deck of cards into the air. In another city, a magician on the streets of Merzet was performing for a couple. With just a snap of his fingers, his wife fell asleep. Then, with another flick, she woke up. But she couldn't walk or talk, and she couldn't even get the money placed in front of her. Then Merzet turned to her husband again and said, "I saw him thinking about something else." He quickly covered it up, saying he was about to go on a business trip to the sea. But Merzet only used a few words to guess the name of his phone contact, which was his sister-in-law. They immediately started arguing with his wife standing next to him. At this time, when Merzet used his extraction trick, Merzet even patted her husband. At the same time, on a boat in New York, Jack Wilder told anyone who could point out his tricks they would get $100. Then he used his mind to bend a spoon. Everyone was surprised and applauded. But a sharp-eyed young man discovered that there was another spoon in his sleeve. Jack had to give him $100. But then, the man quickly discovered that his wallet and luxury watch had blown away with the wind. He chased after him, but it was too late. And the female magician came out with a beautiful soul, Henley. While performing the challenge of opening handcuffs underwater, she only had 1 minute before the tigerfish tank above collapsed. But unfortunately, when Henley opened one side of the handcuffs, the chain was stuck on the floor. She had no choice but to knock on the glass and call for help. A few panicked young men brought iron rods to save the beauty, but pounding still wouldn't help. At this time, luckily she was able to untie the rope, but as soon as she got free, time ran out, causing the tigerfish tank to collapse. Everyone looked at her in fear as she thrashed in pain, and then the entire water tank turned red. Right at this moment, Henley skillfully appeared in the crowd again, causing everyone to see a scene that stimulated endless applause. Danny rewards himself after work, planning to have a dramatic show with a beautiful die-hard fan. Suddenly, seeing a card in his shoe, the guy was so surprised that he pushed the beauty to the ground. At the same time, the remaining 3 people also received the same card with 4 different drawings. By the eyes, on that card is an honor reserved for the most famous magicians. The next day, Henley went to the address on the card and coincidentally met Danny. He got into the old habit of leaving her waiting outside so he could go in and see first. The two reached the upper floor and met Merzet. The door to the room was locked, so the 3 stood outside chatting. Danny warns Merzet not to use mind control on him, so the 2 ex-lovers quarreled without being invited, and the verbal fight only ended when Jack arrived. He happily shook his head and said he was a fan of Danny's series, and with Jack, there are no locked doors. He just gently used a tool to easily open the door. Inside that dusty room was a piece of paper. Henley picked up the rose and put it in the vase. The water immediately flowed out, filling the symbol carved on the floor. Dry ice emits white smoke. Everyone saw something strange, so Merzet took 5 seconds to calm down and didn't see anything. Danny went to turn on the switch, but there was no electricity. Merzet tried turning the light bulb. Unexpectedly, the 3 projectors hidden in the corner of the room were turned on. Many images flashed before everyone's eyes. 1 year later, in Las Vegas, 4 magicians appeared at several famous shows. With a very cool name, the Quartet of Horsemen. They announced in a unified voice something that you should not try at the bank. Everyone in the stands immediately cheered up. But on a row of chairs far away, staff discovered old man Thaddeus Bradley filming. This was against the law, so they confiscated his device. Bradley gave them the phone, then pulled out another small camera to continue filming. At the beginning, Danny asked his teammates to bring out numbers for everyone to choose at random. Then he relied on the results from 3 people. Getting seat B513 was a man in a white suit from France named Fossey. He deposited the money in a bank in Paris. Even though the selection was a bit harsh, the 4 horsemen still invited him up to witness their robbery. Danny also took the opportunity to introduce the billionaire businessman, who was also a sponsor of their program. When Fossey walked towards the stage, he stopped for about 2 seconds. Merzet lightly tapped him on the body. Then they put a magic hat on Fossey. Then they asked him to choose a card, sign it, and put it into the bag. Miss Henley threw out a piece of cloth. The piece of cloth danced like a bird, and then a magical door appeared. The guests stepped into the machine, they dropped the curtain, and with a bang, the machine shut again, making the entire audience hold their breath. At the same time,
an image of Fossey appeared on the screen. He was actually standing in the vault of a Paris bank with more than 3 million euros in front of him. Denny told him to take the ticket and the autographed card and place it among the pile of money. Then press the button on the hat to transfer that money to the stage in Las Vegas, and immediately the money was sucked into the hole in the ceiling. Outside, the bank staff are starting to open the door. When they entered the vault, there was only one stack left, but that money was now flying all over the stage of the show. Everyone was happy and competed to collect money. Going to the show is the best way to get money. The performance ended just like that. The police side is frustrated again because of this daylight robbery. Evans led the team into the house and took all 4 to the police station. He assigned this case to Dylan and Agent Alma Dre. He didn't believe in this magic trick, but Alma said he must bring back the new report. Dylan had no choice but to go into Fosse's interrogation room. He claimed he robbed the bank because the hat moved within 3 seconds. Alma dreamed that he had been hypnotized. At this point, Dylan angrily called her nonsense. Unexpectedly, this is the starting keyword. At this point, Dylan had to compromise and look into the interrogation room. Henley plays in a swivel chair. Jack sleeps like at home. The two chose Merzit to interrogate first. Evans warned that Merzit was good at psychiatry and told him not to believe what he says. Dylan didn't care much. He read a series of Merzit's resumes. He used to be a very famous magician, but then his brother took all the money away, leaving behind a pile of debt. His aura disappeared from there. Merzit was reminded of his trauma and immediately retaliated. He revealed that Alma Dreams is just a girl working at a desk, while Dylan is always haunted by his father abandoning him since he was a child. Then there's Danny, the guy who doesn't care what the police say. He just knows that if they arrest you, it means you believe in magic tricks. Then they are no different from idiots. Unexpectedly, Danny just stood up and slammed his hand on the table. The handcuffs were immediately transferred to Dylan. The key was in an unopened can of soda. So the police don't have enough evidence, they can just release this group. Evans suggested that Dylan go see Bradley, who filmed the magic show that day. He's a former magician. Now he has become the king of decoding magic tricks. Dylan and Alma went to see Bradley. He picked up the glass of water and turned it around a few times. It had turned into wine. Dylan was surprised, but Bradley immediately revealed the red pill in his hand. Dylan wondered why Bradley retired. He said that every year, 1.6 million people around the world watch magic, but the number of decoded discs he sold was up to 5 million, because the need for understanding is always higher than the need to be deceived, and he hates those who take advantage of the public's innocence. At this time, Alma mentioned Lionel Shrike. A talented magician was also the first person to be exposed by Bradley. In the end, he and his assistant brought the two of them to the stage, but the 4 horsemen performed the previous day. Bradley told the agent to put on his teleport helmet and step into the machine. Immediately, he fell into a room below the stage. At this time, everyone also walked down the stairs. It turns out that the horsemen created a vault identical to Fosse's bank, but why did they know they would choose him? Actually, there is no such thing as coincidence. The 3 of them had already hidden the ball in their hands. As for the guest, they had already researched and used hypnosis. Then they used Fosse's credit card to know which bank he uses until he gets on stage to activate it. Then they hid in the bank's money transfer vehicle. Then a person who had just worked as a traffic policeman stopped the car. After congratulating the staff, they exchanged all the real money with fake money, and finally they used burning paper to make the pile of fake money evaporate. Just leave behind the cards and a pair of performance tickets that were prepared in advance. 2 days later, the 4 horsemen had another big performance. They all got to ride in the manager's private jet. Danny continues to flirt with girls. At the same time, the 2 agents also took the plane to the show. The guy hates bluffing to death, while she was very excited. Alma told him to choose a card. After drinking, things went wrong. The card she chose was carelessly dropped on the guest next to her. Alma tried it a second time and guessed correctly the card he chose. At this point, she asked the agent if he felt taken advantage of, or feel comfortable because this is a small joy. Very timidly, every time he looked into his eyes, Danny felt like he knew a little about mind reading, so he went to try it out with his sponsor, but he guessed all 3 sentences wrong, which made everyone laugh tiredly. When the 2 of them arrived, the streets were so crowded that they couldn't even rent a room. He was struggling and didn't know where to go. Then Alma had the best idea. She rented an old lady's house, and the Decoding King is in doubt for the latest episode. He mentioned ancient Egyptian legends. In ancient times, there was a Magi Society. They used magic to steal food from the rich to
the poor, and the 4 horsemen were fools to believe this legend. But the sponsors suddenly stopped appearing and gave him just $3.5 million to stop this game. But of course, Bradley did not agree. He didn't drink the wine that was offered, so the sponsor guy took power into his own hands, threatening to take everything from him if it affects his investment. Bradley held his anger and came to find the quartet to encourage them. Merzit despised him for talking about his past. Bradley was originally a man who dreamed of becoming a great magician, but his talent cannot be compared with anyone. So in the end, he ended his career and turned to destroying real talent. Unexpectedly, Bradley's face was immediately as black as the bottom of a pot. At this time, Danny said he had just practiced a magic trick. He asked him to choose a card. He insisted that it was in Danny's sleeve, but in the end, it ended up in his pocket. The card had the word, die. The show begins. Danny would like to introduce 2 special people. It was the police duo who promised to arrest them. First, Danny brought out a box. Henley put the rabbit in. Then when they opened the box, the bunny was gone. The 2 immediately decoded this magic show right on stage. Turns out the rabbit was still there, only blocked by a mirror.
As for Mirzet, he called some audience volunteers to come up. Then he hypnotized the whole group to play football together. Jack randomly selects guests. Then he threw out the deck of cards. The cards they chose stuck to the pen. He also threw a card that cut off the pen's stem. A moment later, Danny used his hands to create soap bubbles. The last one Henley stepped into ran inside. The balloon carried her high, and she somersaulted in the air. Then suddenly it broke, causing Henley to fall, but Danny was there below to catch her. Everyone applauded nonstop. At break time, Mirzet tells the audience to write down the amount of money they have in their account and put it in an envelope. Then shout his name out loud, and he called out a few people's names. He said to this beautiful black woman, "Concentrate on your money and count to 10. Mirzet immediately guessed her account number correctly, but then he told her she was wrong. He told everyone to stand together and put the envelope on the table. Then he said he would show everyone they were wrong. Then the four horsemen invited their trailer sponsor to the stage. Jack brought up a giant envelope with his assets of more than $140 million. After that, they told everyone to use a flashlight to look at the paper. Their exact amount would appear. Jack also brought up a corresponding flashlight. When the sponsor looked at his paper, the numbers on it gradually decreased, while the audience accounts below increased one after another. At this time, the four horsemen announced that these spectators were all victims of a disaster and that they all bought insurance from the sponsor, but he left without compensation. Everyone immediately took out their phones to check. They saw their accounts really growing. The whole audience was overjoyed. As for the sponsor, he was so angry that he wanted to rush at the quartet, but he was shackled by them a long time ago. At this time, the police arrived, but the four horsemen swung away. They were held back by the audience below. Evans said the quartet was carrying some kind of GPS watch. They gave the signal to the agent. He immediately chased the red dot on the device, jumping on a series of cars, causing them to honk loudly. After speeding past several houses, they encountered the street festival again. But Alma was chasing Danny in the crowd. She used the gun to control him, but she didn't dare shoot and let Danny escape. The agent was chased to a restroom. Then he was surrounded by his own people. He looked back in his pocket. Turns out he was always watching himself. That night, the police and the agent lost face and couldn't pair it. It was reported everywhere that he was a failed agent. Dylan sadly went to the pub. Alma comes to comfort him, but that hot-tempered guy blamed her, causing two people to quarrel. He was also thrown onto the table by Alma and left. As for the sponsor, he's worried about being stung by the pain, so he made an appointment to meet Bradley. He said this was a great magic show, prepared in advance, and it's not over yet, so he decided to use double the amount of money to ask for help. Bradley painted the faces of the horseman group. The understanding agent returned home. He saw Alma reading a book until she fell asleep. He gently took the book away and tried to read it. Alma was woken up, so they went out and read it together. She said there was a group of real magicians called Magic Eyes. They only recruit new people twice a century, and it is possible that the quartet is related to this organization. Alma dreamed that maybe there was a fifth horseman that they didn't know about. She said if Magic Eyes were real, would they follow us? At this time, the agent discovers his phone is bugged. When reviewing the interview tape, he discovered that while pouring water, Danny installed it on his phone. Dylan then told everyone to pretend they didn't know anything. Then they accessed the quartet's location and immediately flew to the warehouse to capture them. But the horsemen have already finished cleaning up. The way down to the floor is by a sewer pipe. When the agent and Evans entered the room, they only saw a burning fire. There was no
one left. But then Dylan gently walked down from the cupboard and got behind Evans. He used a wet towel to cover his mouth. Then he took off his sleeves and stuffed them into the sink. Turning on the water suction switch made him unable to move. Then Evans pulled his agent and grabbed his gun. He punched the guy, but he rushed in and pushed him down. Both of them, after a few chaotic moves, Dylan locked a leg of the agent to the table. Then he pretended that he sent the police to look elsewhere. He quickly gathered the documents and ran away. He threw a burning wire in his face. He kicked the iron grate. After struggling for a while, he saw a tear appear on his back. He kicked again and fell to the floor, then took the opportunity to untie his leg cuffs. He turned and threw the cards at his face. The angry agent chased the garbage pipe gunman. Dylan grabbed the documents and ran away. He went out and did a few tricks, controlled the two robbers, and stole their car to escape. Alma was kept outside the perimeter. She also took away her colleague's car and drove away, timely picking up the agent and chasing the tear. The two chased each other onto the highway, but when they got to the bridge, they were caught in traffic. She was obstructed by a bus, unable to get around, and crashed into the barrier, causing the car to flip over. The agent ran to try to pull her out but got stuck and could only get the documents before the car exploded. Later, the agent again received a call from Thaddeus Bradley. He warned that Alma had a problem. Even though he refuted him, he actually paid attention. Therefore, he became suspicious and quarreled with Alma. While this case was assigned to someone else to command, through the documents he obtained from his investigative colleagues, it was discovered that the private security contractor iHunt had hidden $500 million in a vault in the warehouse.
That was probably the quartet's final destination. The whole team immediately ran to the place and found it was not secure. The staff said Evans ordered them to move, but it didn't happen. Suddenly, a sound of music rang out. The guy closed his eyes and played the violin. It turned out he had been hypnotized all along. Dylan ran out to chase the safe cart. Then they decided to still follow the knight's plan. Following the money cart would lead them to them. In the car, Dylan saw that they had just posted a video 20 minutes ago, saying that the group would start something more important than anything. The crowd eagerly flocked to the performance, waiting to see the knight's challenge to the police. Over here, the police are hiding in front of cars, but could not wait for the knights to arrive. The one who came was Bradley. Dylan begins to suspect that he is the fifth knight, but he called him stupid. Dylan opened the truck. Inside was just a pile of fabric and toy balloons. While outside, the show was starting. Danny spoke up in front of the camera, saying this would be the last performance of the Four Horsemen, then appeared on the roof. The police used all their manpower to rush in, because this was the last chance to catch them. At the same time, the three knights were in the elevator building, expressing their feelings of comradeship and thinking about what they would do at the end. When they got there, they only called a bunch of holographic figures. The two Alma people came and only saw the projectors, because the trio had now gone to the roof to meet Danny. They held hands and then declared that they would bring miracles to the world. Watching them prepare to run away, Dylan lost his temper and fired a shot. Luckily, Alma next to him stopped him. Then the trio jumped down from the roof of a high-rise building, turning into a rain of money, and the scene immediately became chaotic. No one knew where those three magicians were. At this moment, he was running out of breath on the nearby roof. This is the end. Dylan had no way to catch them anymore. Alma was right when she said you can't go against them. The two looked at each other passionately and then gave each other a kiss. Suddenly, Evans came to Dylan, who was still lost, and said that the rain of money was all waste paper, but the real money is now in the king's carriage used for the magic trick on the edge of the cup. The police just arrived and arrested him. The three knights came to the center and saw news of their show everywhere. They still have one more place to go. The next day, Dylan went to prison to visit Bradley. He said he was wronged and had a way to prove it. It wouldn't hurt to listen. He said, remember the rabbit trick? The quartet did the same to the room. A glass cover was used to cover the iron vault. When the police came in, they couldn't see the ironwork, so they immediately ran to find the knight. Meanwhile, the knight should already be inside. He sneaked into the warehouse, broke the iron fence, took all that money and stuffed it into his car. At this time, on the night side, they arrived at the park and were met by Dylan, who coldly walked out. So what was the explosion on the bridge? The knights were waiting on the bridge with a truck-like vehicle. As soon as Dylan's vision was blocked, they immediately replaced the car and caused an accident. They also stole that money from the vault. But why do they do that? They have no interest in this at all.
This is also what Bradley wants to know. At this time, Dylan said he knew deep down that in his heart, Bradley wanted to be a part of the Magic Eye. Because he couldn't get in, he let go of his anger. Bradley denied that Magic Eyes were real. So who is behind this performance? He thought this person was willing to sacrifice everything, but when he turned back, there was no one behind him. Dylan was now standing outside the bars. He said he had been waiting for this day for a long time, and then left. Bradley can only spend the rest of his life in prison without knowing why. The four knights had now found the tree called the Lioness. The four knights placed their 4 tickets together, then looked at the Magic Eye on the card. It immediately lit up and started the carousel spinning nearby. Dylan appeared before everyone. They were also extremely surprised and bewildered. Thinking about what they did to this policeman, they feared they would lose their tickets. But he smiled and said, "Welcome everyone to the Magic Eye." Then Dylan jumped on the Ferris wheel and disappeared. The quartet also did the same and disappeared in a bright light. In France, Alma, as usual, walked on a bridge full of locks. Dylan suddenly appeared behind Alma. It turns out he is the son of the genius magician Lionel Shrike. After hearing this, Alma decided to keep this matter secret with Dylan. Then the two people locked this secret on the bridge and threw the key into the deep riverbed. Part 1 ends here. Let's continue with Part 2. Back to the past when Dylan was just a boy. He went to see a performance by his father, the legendary magician Lionel Shrike, who was being locked into an iron cage and had to escape from there in a short time. Time passed, but he was still nowhere to be seen. Only the sound of the rescue team could be heard. Danny took it upon himself to search for traces of the Magic Eye Association. He reached an underground cellar and heard a mysterious voice announcing that this wait would soon be over and that he more than deserved to be a candidate. At the police station, Dylan is still a bad cop. He predicted that the Four Horsemen would attack a software company, but his colleagues see him as crazy and no one cares. On this side, Danny had just arrived home when he met a strange girl. Just a few steps away, a trap was set off that fell right on the girl's head. However, it was just an amateur magic show. The girl still sat calmly drinking water with him. She said she wanted to join the Magic Eye Club like Danny. Regardless of what the girl said, Danny still glared at her. But as soon as she turned her back, the girl disappeared. At the meeting place, Dylan introduced a new female member named Lula. She will replace the old member Henley. Dylan assigned the task this time, to track down the director of Okta, Walter. Okta is selling a phone model for everyone to use and secretly selling customer information for profit. So the Magic Eye decided to expose this matter to light.
The day Okta promoted the product was also the time the four knights took action. Jack pretends to be a security officer. Danny dresses up as a waiter serving food. However, when he went inside, he immediately took off his clothes. This is truly a quick transformation that no one noticed. Danny even successfully got Walter's autograph. He turned into a technician again and went to the surveillance camera room. A switch that was faster than flipping a page happened. The security officer saw the prisoner's tattoo and immediately took the other employee away. While he was about to call his boss, he encountered Dylan. The end result is that the phone turns into a banana. Danny hacked the cameras and left, and Lula becomes a beautiful female chef. She started stirring up the chef next to her to get his attention. During the fight, he intentionally broke his arm. The audience was captivated by the beauty. Mirzet got the chance to approach Walter and began to hypnotize him. He took this person to a room with a streaming device. The four knights gathered together under the stage. Mirzet controlled Walter's mind to speak according to his words. Walter told the audience that he had invited the four knights to expose his shady affairs. The members of the four knights are back and more powerful than before. They tell the audience that Walter has been selling everyone's personal information for profit. However, after only saying a few sentences, there was suddenly a technical problem. A mysterious person on the screen claimed that the new four knights are a hoax. At this time, Dylan discovered a card in his phone. Outside, the FBI got information about the four knights, so they rushed in. The elevator door lock was broken, preventing them from entering. Dylan knew he couldn't stop the FBI, so he left the group and escaped. The mysterious person who unmasked them was still there, disguised as a security officer. The mysterious person claimed that the leader was Dylan. Colleagues quickly grabbed him and controlled him, but Dylan soon broke free and ran away. The four knights were running on the roof and jumped into smoke. Then they jumped into a pre-designed pipe. The group fell into the trash can of a Chinese restaurant. The staff here showed a rude attitude and forced them out. Mirzet saw the whole Chinatown scene unfold before his eyes. When he went back inside, he heard a familiar laugh. That's Chase, Mirzet's twin brother. Danny was about to grab him by the neck and was surrounded by gangsters. He explained that the group had jumped from
The roof in New York and are currently in Macau. The four knights were forced into the carriage and taken away. The next day, news of the four knights revealing their faces was broadcast on television. Dylan called the quartet but couldn't get through. Suddenly, a call came from Bradley. He said it was Dylan who started this, and you will be next. Returning to Macau, Chase said that a week ago he disguised himself as a pizza delivery person and visited Mirzet's house. Just a little trick to take down Mirzet, then check all personal information of the four knights. Finally, the car stopped at Macau's largest casino. As soon as the elevator door opened, the mysterious person appeared. That's the guy, not Harry Potter, but Walter Mabry. He showed the four knights his powerful processor. Walter also explained his magic show. He placed a pipe next to theirs, and in the water pipe there was gas that made them fall asleep. Not only that, Walter also showed them a video about the journey to Macau. He also took the opportunity to take pictures of the four knights' sleeping positions. Walter said he was the co-creator of a powerful computer capable of connecting to all computers on the planet. It can encrypt any data and break the firewall of any computer, manipulating the market and taking advantage of whoever it wants. Walter can buy it back, but he still wants the four knights to steal it for him. If they do not agree, they will be handed over to the authorities. Jack, Lula, and Mirzet stood up to protest this, saying they only listened to Dylan's orders. But Danny decided to make this trip. On this side, Dylan forged FBI documents to visit Bradley in prison. He wants Dylan to get him out of prison within 24 hours. In return, he will cooperate with Dylan to save the four horsemen. Finally, Dylan agreed to take him outside. Bradley reveals where the four horsemen are: Macau. Returning to Macau, the group of four knights went to a shop selling magic props. Here, a man did not sing but worked as a salesman. He came out and introduced some cheap buy two get one free products. Danny wants to buy a cheap card to hide the chip without being detected by detectors. Taking advantage of Chase's time outside, he contacted the Magic Eye Association. Returning home, Danny temporarily became team captain. They analyzed the map of where the brain chip was hidden. Luckily, the chip fit the card perfectly, so they all practiced moving the cards in a way that would curse anyone who tampered with them. The four horsemen also took advantage of the opportunity at the casino. They grabbed a mafia guy and tried to buy a chip to easily hypnotize him to enter the center where the chip is hidden. The manager told them to remove all metal objects on their bodies to go through the scanner. The group then safely passed through the scanner. The manager led the four knights into the room containing the processor, what he called a magic box, capable of wiping out any computer system on the planet. Jack killed time and sang continuously, attracting the attention of the security team. Lula took a hairpin and let her hair down. She jumped down below the machine and used her hands to disassemble the shell, then gently took the chip and attached it to the card, then left quietly. Outside, Danny and the beauty asked many questions to the manager. However, when Dylan returned abnormally, he became skeptical. Not only that, he also had security search them. The first person was the one who raised his hand. He moved the card visibly, but the security guard still couldn't see it. He tossed the card to Danny. The guy slipped the card through his sleeve, then down the pant legs and onto Lula's high heels. She took the opportunity to hug the handsome security guard to get the cards. The beauty put the card behind her head and moved it. Seeing that the employee was about to touch her, she immediately pushed him away. Lula adjusted her bra herself, making the two guards stare. Then she took off her small shirt and threw it aside. She still kept the card but deliberately lost focus on protecting it. Jack suddenly took the card out of the guard's back pocket. He attached a rope and passed it back to Danny. But because it was so urgent, a guard paid attention. Immediately, 3 guards gathered around. However, when Danny turned around, there were no cards at all. The employee came to look in his pocket, but he pushed it away. Danny pulled his shirt off to prove his innocence. It's true that the more you try to hide something, the more obvious it becomes. Danny took the card from his shirt and threw it at the crowd. The manager called security to do a final search. Seeing that it wasn't right, he threw it over for Lula to catch. The beauty threw the card over until it reached Dylan. He patted the card on the back and left. As soon as you step out of the gate, you quickly throw the card behind you so someone can catch it. Although the performance was a bit of a mess, he told his manager that he liked the act. Now the important thing is to get the chip out of the security gate. Jack took the card out of the hat and threw it until it reached Dylan. Luckily, he remembered his wallet and immediately asked for it back. Taking advantage of the security guard's distraction, he immediately threw the card through the safety gate. As soon as they stepped outside, the 4 got into the car and immediately fled. On this side, Dylan gradually followed the instructions of Bradley. The old woman at the magic shop recognized them. The old woman led them
both into a secret room. Inside were countless used magic items. There was an old safe in there. Bradley told him that it was the safe his father performed with in the past. The old lady who owned the shop even gave Dylan a memento that his father left him, an old watch. Bradley took advantage of this opportunity to hide in an embalmed iron coffin. But when Dylan opened it, there was only a note left. At a Chinese market, they found Danny, but he said he was no longer the captain and could now contact the Magic Eye Association himself. He blamed Dylan for putting them in this situation. When he heard these words, Dylan felt very sad and left. However, things are not as they seem. The person from the Magic Eye group who appeared was Walter. He admitted that he pretended to be a member of the Magic Eye Association to separate Danny and Dylan. He also used a detector to copy information from Danny's phone. Seeing Danny was no longer useful, Walter had his men steal the data back. Suddenly, Dylan appeared, gave his men a few punches, and then pushed Danny away. Danny saw that the chip was still in the card and left. Inside, Dylan became the target of a hunt. He used a camera to blind his subordinates. Dylan was placed behind a glass display, causing them to crash and faint. He even grabbed a towel, danced for a while, and then disappeared. The kid holding the knife lunged at him and then fell into a hole. While climbing upstairs, a man with a knife slashed his arm. Dylan grabbed 2 old knives from a pile and pulled out 2 ropes to fight them off. Next, he showed off his skills with some fire-breathing bravado. The whole group of people moved to control Dylan and then threw him outside. Chase first used an umbrella to create a distraction so his men could knock Dylan unconscious. On this side, Danny met his teammates and told them everything. The 4 knights saw the gangsters hoisting Lionel Strike's safe and knew it was time for business. When he woke up, Dylan once again encountered the enemy who had harmed his family, none other than Old Man Tressler. He was proud of the cruel man next to him. Walter opened the safe Lionel Strike had locked Dylan inside. This sadist looked on with great pleasure as the safe fell into the water. Inside the safe, it was extremely difficult as the water overflowed more and more. He remembered his father's words to always have something with him. Then he took the watch and pulled out a tool. Dylan tried to open the safe several times. Sometime later, the door opened and he was exhausted. On the shore, Old Man Tressler got into the car and thanked Bradley for bringing Dylan to him. He gave an envelope to Bradley and said he would give the other half when he captured the 4 knights. On this side, Danny swam into the water to rescue Dylan. The 4 knights were happy to have their captain return to the team. Jack discovers that the chip they are holding is fake. It turned out that someone had stolen the card without their knowledge, and Walter didn't know, so he chased them like a cat chasing a mouse. Danny recalls that in the book it was said that a magician's greatest power is forever hidden in his empty fist, the ability to convince the world that he was carrying a secret. The person who said that was Lionel Shrek, Dylan's father. So the group made similar plans, making Walter think that the quartet had what he was looking for. Then they would expose and destroy him and his son. The old woman and her grandson from the magic shop also came out to help the 4 knights. They are also members of the powerful Magic Eye Association, so the good men raised their glasses for the upcoming mission. The 4 horsemen appeared on YouTube again, claiming to expose someone and bring someone back from the dead. They also promised the audience that the show would start at midnight on New Year's Eve in London. This news quickly spread around the world. Everyone was eager to see what interesting things the 4 knights would do.
Tressler and his son got on the plane together and headed straight to London. That evening, Jack appeared first at a street restaurant. He threw away cards, revealing large cards. Jack invited a beautiful lady and many guests. Soon 2 male guests were performing together. Jack signaled for the 2 cards to be swapped. However, when opening the card, the girl appeared elsewhere. Jack did the performance again, but this time all 3 cards fell and the guests disappeared. Somewhere nearby, Lula appeared, attracting attention. She pointed to a man's pants and a pigeon flew out. Then she took out another note from his shirt. However, she accidentally revealed the trick. Walter hacked the city's camera system to observe the appearance of the Fornates. At the 3rd point, Danny appeared under the rainy sky. Walter predicted the 4th point where Merzit would appear. He and Tressler also discovered that Dylan was not dead. Tressler got in the car and set out to arrest the foursome. On this side, Danny said that the rain was created by nature, but he would be the one to make it stop. He raised his arm and the water drops immediately stopped moving. Not only that, he also made the water drops fly upward. Danny was like a magician who could control water drops to move according to his will. The whole city of London was fascinated, watching the performance of the 4 knights. Merzit was about to appear at the 4th point when his brother Chase caught him. Merzit immediately informed Dylan that Jet Plan had been exposed. Dylan warned
The group to move immediately. The FBI also paid attention and moved against them. Jack created a rain of cards and then disappeared. Lula shook her shirt to let birds fly out and escaped. And Danny fell into a puddle, and all he had to do was play along with Jack. The FBI rushed to the scene and found no one among the 4 knights, because Bradley appeared and said he would help the FBI capture them. The 4 knights gathered at the rendezvous point and got into their vehicles. However, just after running a little, Jack was caught. The others were no more fortunate. Merzit didn't know how to run, but rushed forward to fight. As a result, the entire team was arrested and thrown into a truck. Inside, the old fox Tressler and his son were extremely pleased. Soon, the car took them to one of his planes. The 4 knights and their captain were led inside. Tressler asked Dylan where the chip was. Seeing that he did not answer, Walter immediately threatened to kill Lula. Dylan told Danny to give them the card. Walter immediately checked whether the card was genuine or not. The 4 knights were afraid that their plan would be exposed, so they pretended to quarrel with each other. However, the surprising thing was that the chip was a real product. Seeing that this group of people was no longer useful, he immediately ordered his men to throw the quartet out of the plane. He was also happy to bring out a valuable bottle of wine worth $1.2 million to celebrate. Tressler opened the plane door and threw each member of the 4 horsemen out. The old fox pretended to raise a glass with his son and was tricked. When he opened the bottle, he saw a large card inside. The group of 4 knights came back to claim their victory. Walter walked closer to the window and was suddenly startled. It turned out that their plane was still standing, but it was floating on the river. The whole city of London gathered in large numbers on both banks. His bodyguards were blocked by a door. The FBI also joined in, trying to capture the entire crew. The members of the 4 knights excitedly introduced Captain Dylan. He prepared this event to live-stream this performance to people all over the world. Jack also explained the trick of finding the lady. In fact, they always prepared another way to deceive everyone. They also knocked out the truck driver who led Tressler to the prepared hangar. As for the plane, it was moved by huge mechanical propellers. The idea of throwing the 4 knights out of the plane was also put into Chase's head. Danny used magic to take the chip from Walter's pocket. The 4 knights revealed the secret of the stolen data, manipulating the market and the government to steal people's privacy. So the 4 knights came here to expose their evil faces. Spectators on both sides of the river cheered for the 4 knights. Fireworks were also launched on New Year's Eve to celebrate the new year. The FBI arrived to arrest Walter and his son. However, the 4 knights disappeared without leaving a trace. Before leaving, he left all information about their crimes to his female colleague. Walter promised his father that he would learn from the experience so there wouldn't be a next time. The crazy old man said that if he waited until next time, he would probably be reincarnated in another life. In the sky, a light appeared, symbolizing the Magic Eye Association. The next morning, the foursome and Dylan visited the headquarters of the Magic Eye Association and met the magic shop owner again. This side also had a room with photos of world-famous magicians. Bradley appeared and apologized many times about the past. His grandfather and father were close friends. Lionel's death was also the thing he regretted the most. He didn't explain everything clearly to him, but when Dylan put aside all hatred towards him to save the 4 knights, Bradley admitted to arranging everything from the beginning. Even his father's watch was given to him by Bradley. Outside, the 4 knights saw their images collected very carefully, including their Octa performance. More surprisingly, they met the security manager of Octa Company Eden. Dylan accepted Bradley's apology and considered him as one of his own. Bradley suggested that he should find a successor to replace him. The group of 4 knights went inside. The cupola led people to a spiral staircase that looked like an eye. This is the end of the movie. Magic is not a fairy tale miracle. It is skillfully arranged and prepared by talented magicians. Every step is prepared in detail to deceive your eyes. So the more you pay attention, the easier it is to be fooled. What do you think about this movie? If you like this movie, please leave a like and a comment. Now goodbye and see you again in the next recaps.